Hello everyone, welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host Eric Wright. Puppet Time Online is hosted by the Puppet Kitchen, and this is the company that I run that designs and builds and performs and teaches puppets and puppetry for screen, stage, live appearances, and we're kind of a one-stop shop. But I'm really excited to be back again today with Puppet Time Online. It's really our chance to talk to people that know what they're talking about. This show sort of started as a way for me to talk to people who knew what they're talking about in a time of uncertainty, and that really helps, I think. So I know a lot about puppets, and a lot of my friends in and around the puppetry community know a lot about puppets and other things. So this is a chance to get to hear from them. I'm super excited to hear from our guest today, and we're going to bring her on the show. She runs the Puppet Showplace Theater in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston, and I'm really excited to bring her in. Her name is Roxie Myhrum, and I'm going to add her to this right now. So everybody, just welcome Roxie. I've got Katie over here who's watching your questions. If you have questions for Roxie or I, type them into the comments there and we'll try and answer them. Hi, Roxie.
Hi, Eric. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
I'm well. I've never been on Instagram Live before, so I'm really excited to be here with you and also our unsinkable sea serpent here outside of sunny Puppet Showplace Theater in Brookline, Boston, Massachusetts. So hi, everyone.
How's everything going over at Puppet Showplace?
Oh, like I said when we checked in, those questions, how's it going? How are you? They're always they've got a lot going on.
They've become much more complicated questions of late.
I didn't even think they could. So the answer is, Puppet Showplace is strong AF, and this is not our first crisis. The theater is maybe I'm going to walk just to give you a little welcome to the neighborhood while we're here.
Great.
So right now I'm actually behind the theater, and we have our beautiful.
I think your internet connection does not like it when you walk around.
Oh, fair. I'll go back over here. Thank you. Yes, good point. I'm like, which platform is it on? I'll just go peek into our lobby real quick. Hopefully it likes it better when I come in this way. But we painted in our window early on. We wrote "Stay Strong" here at Puppet Showplace. There we go.
Oh, it's so lovely.
Beautiful. Yay. Oh, you're actually seeing it the right way. It is written backwards in the window.
That's right.
And then,
it's so funny.
yeah, the amazing, this is the portrait puppet of Mary Churchill, the founder of the theater, and her beautiful crocheted puppets that we have here on display. So some inspiration as well as some characters by Paul Vincent Davis, the resident artist emeritus, and then just so we're keeping the joy alive, right? Keeping the joy alive. And it's like I said, it's not our first crisis at the theater. We You know, everything. I've been here about 10 and a half years. So everything from the Boston Marathon bombing in the middle of April, vacation week,
Mhm.
to, you know, some floods and building disasters and monster 100-inch snowstorms,
Mhm.
or over a season, 100 inches of snow.
Mhm.
You know, we have a really great team here who are like, all right, pandemic, bring it, bring it on.
Yeah, yeah. You guys have
So
been doing some great stuff online,
yeah,
and keeping things going and keeping puppetry out there, and it's been really cool to see.
yeah, and it's a big community, right? We have a small staff at the theater, but you know, we present about 30 different puppet companies every year from across New England and all over the country. So I think one of the things that we feel is also our responsibility as an institution is trying to um, keep an eye out for everyone, make sure they're getting the support and these different relief programs and government programs. And
Hmm.
uh, you know, you gotta, the puppet family, we all gotta look out for each other, and
Yeah,
it's been wonderful feeling that from so many people, the different puppetry centers, the different companies, the educational programs and institutions. So
yeah,
go team.
yeah. Right. So I actually don't know if I know how you got into puppetry in the first place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a fun story, and in some ways it's nice. It's connected to the O'Neill, which is going on this week, the National Puppetry Conference. But so I
Yep.
grew up in what some people think the answer might be, but it actually isn't. My grandfather was a TV director, and he actually directed Sesame Street in the 70s for a
Oh,
little bit of
cool.
time. He looks like John Stone, but is not John Stone. Like, he's also a beardly big dude. Um,
Uh-huh.
but he yeah, so I had this like funny connection to Sesame Street and the Muppets, but he was long retired at that period of time. So while it was like a cool talking point growing up,
Uh-huh.
it didn't actually influence me. Um, so I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, the Pioneer Valley, and there was a little uh, theater school that like took drama education very seriously. You know, there's some youth theater programs that like teach you to be a star, and there's some other ones that are like, we're
Uh-huh.
babysitting on stage, right? And this was not either of
Yeah.
those. It was like, dear teens, like, this is some serious scene study. You're gonna read like Pinter and get your Stanislavski and all of this stuff. Like, and so my teacher there was Darren Wood, among others, but
Uh-huh.
Darren Wood from Flock Theater in New London, Connecticut.
Right. I know
Darren is an
Darren. That's cool.
yeah, Darren's an absolute national treasure. He is like the extraordinary teaching artist. He has that gift of getting teens to get out of their weird, like, self-obsessed goofiness and like take their engagement with the human condition seriously. I mean, it's
Yeah.
extraordinary,
Yeah.
and I adore him. So he also, by the way, was Madeline Sayet's teacher, Maddie Sayet, who's this also like extraordinary director now in the world, and she often. You know, she's on these lists of like 30 under 30 or whatever. She's someone who is
Hmm.
of Mohegan heritage, so
Uh-huh.
she's often called on to collaborate with uh, or organizations who are interested in amplifying Indigenous voices in theater. Anyway, so Darren, he lives, you know, in New London, right next to Waterford, Connecticut, and that's where his company was based. So he'd drive; it's like an hour still to Springfield to teach there.
Right.
But he, um, in so at one point in his classes, he was teaching classes like ritual ensemble and other things that were devised or nonlinear theater or mask theater for
Mm-hmm.
teens. So I started getting a little puppet curious. Like I was in that orbit, in that
Yeah.
space, but wouldn't necessarily have been like, oh, puppetry. But then I was asked to sub for someone in a Boar's Head Festival production. So
Okay.
like Ren Fair
Yeah.
style of crazy pageant performance, right?
Yeah.
And they would do this whole crazy pre-show, and one of the characters was the puppeteer,
Uh-huh.
Willa. It used to be Wilfred, so I was going to be Willa, the
Mm-hmm.
puppeteer. And the puppeteer was supposed to tell the story of the Boar's Head Festival with the scholar, the hand puppet, and the boar. And they had these like kind of paper mache fun little puppets like you have Ren Fair style, kind of like Punch and Judy and a gator, but scholar and boar. And
Mm-hmm.
I got them and I started performing and I just was like, geez, I feel awkward. I I
Uh-oh.
um I don't feel like I'm doing this correctly, whatever. And I went to Darren. I was like, I think you know some puppety stuff. And Darren would be like, oh, yes, well, this puppet's walk and then movement and look and blah, blah, blah. And like, here's the right form and all of that. And then I was like, oh, there is secrets unlocked.
Yeah.
um, and at some point, I forget like which thing happened first. The drama studio offered a puppetry class that actually was taught by Darren's partner at Flock, Carl Weeding, uh, and I was doing some other things. But Darren knew that I had this interest, and his company staffed the emerging artist strand at the O'Neill. So Flock
Right.
members, which also included Mark Petrosino, it included um, Russell Tucker. It included Scott. Did include Scott Hitt. It just like all Mary
From Monkey
Gragan.
Boys Productions. Yeah.
Yep, Monkey Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Artaby was part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and Marta Moselle McCrosty at some points. But it was this whole group of people who would come in to work on the emerging artist strand as it was at the time, and they, there was someone who's doing the Shakespeare marionette track, which a lot of times at the O'Neill, they still have all the Shakespeare marionettes with Fred Thompson.
Right.
But they were like, well, Roxy, you know all these Shakespeare monologues. You'll probably come and be part of that thread, that strand. And I wasn't actually cast in that. I was cast in Hua Hua Zhang's thesis piece,
Oh, yeah.
The
I remember
Bell.
that piece. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So I was like the mother, and the bell at the end, the little like
Right.
hopeful sprout that grew out of the river of blood, right? But it was mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I went there and I was like, oh, suddenly through this discipline that I know, this much technique to be able to get in the door, but I'm taking it really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to work productively with an artist and have access into this extraordinary culture of Chinese puppet theater and stylized movement. I'm able to talk about these like really profound her piece was about like totalitarianism and the fall of a society. We were doing it all non-verbally.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to perform with Darren because I had
Mm-hmm.
never done that before, and we together were playing a goddess, like a manifestation of Kuan Yin. And it was amazing. And then the other piece I worked on then was Heather Henson's. At that point, it was called Petals in the Wind, but it was one of the
Mm-hmm.
first years that she had worked in collaboration with a kite artist,
Right.
which, of course, has been this amazing theatrical vocabulary that she's used for decades and decades. So I was 15
Oh,
then.
man.
And that was when when I met all these people, and the door into this world
Yeah.
of we make theater by getting together, having something to say and think about together, and then we discover it by moving, experimenting, and it was just so extraordinary. So that then I just only wanted
Mm-hmm.
to do that. But you know, it wasn't a linear path through there. That was like the you know, the muse speaks to me, but I had a very academic background, and I you know, kind of decided I didn't want to go to theater conservatory. I did my undergrad at Harvard, and I did, it's called social studies, but it's kind of like what people do before going to law school.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I didn't want to go to law school. I didn't want to be a
Uh-huh.
lawyer. But I wanted to make people think.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really want to teach or do research. And I worked a little while in film like TV production. I worked on some made-for-TV events, like PBS's version of a ballroom dancing challenge show is called America's Ballroom Challenge. So
Nice.
I was a PA on that show. I worked on a bunch
Nice.
of documentaries and things. And
So
after
it's kind of
college,
getting your feet wet in the like
yeah,
organizational and
yeah,
administration side.
exactly. Well, and also trying out TV as a
Mm-hmm.
medium, and I was like, I just never, it never lit the fire. I loved working with the teams, and I loved working on event-based television, and I loved the meticulousness of like A films and other things were really exciting to me. It was such a
Right.
cool craft, but I, yeah, just the audience wasn't there, and I needed that audience connection. So
Yeah.
while I was doing that, someone posted uh, an advertisement looking for an assistant director on an opera production. There, Boston started having all of these fringe
Oh
opera
yeah.
companies because there's
Mm-hmm.
all these music conservatories, and the singers wanted to organize to produce shows. And so I worked on a really crazy production of Hansel and Gretel by Engelbert Humperdinck, which is a great, like, you know, kind of visual and opera theater. And I also became like really into opera. So sometimes what I tell people now is I'm a director of non-realistic theater. Um,
Nice. Oh,
I,
that's cool.
yeah, because what the stuff that I care about, it's like using some technical precision, like in classical music, to unlock
Mm-hmm.
this visceral, profound, um, potent, primal language,
Uh-huh.
right? Of like when you get hit by raw bel canto sound and like full orchestral fury, that
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah,
It's
like
really,
that's
yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. And Puppet Kitchen knows that big time.
Yeah.
And the same thing with puppetry, even if it's simple, if you have that, like whatever that combination of gesture and craft and animation is, you're like suddenly, oh my God, you know, I see the heart of the universe. So
Yeah.
that's what I try to do.
Well, you know, it's funny. I think that's kind of great that that's where you bring like that's the aesthetic that you bring to a children's theater, because I
Yeah.
think that's probably not what people think of when they think of
Hmm.
the effectiveness of children's theater is like a finely honed craft.
Yeah.
But that's really what Puppet Showplace is about.
Yeah. And it's such a frustrating stereotype that through the commercialization, I guess, of um, certain youth entertainment and
Mm-hmm.
things that are marketed as to kids and families, that it's not that they're low quality necessarily, but that the there's the goal is something like distraction for dollars. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
the power of puppetry and the power of also theater that speaks to like kids with not a lot of life experience, right? That speaks in a very primal, that it speaks primal truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it's just so exciting because it's that's our cultural heritage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our cultural heritage isn't franchised toys. Maybe it is sometimes, but trying to find, once you get through all that, it's this like, what is the thing that is in both of our hearts, and now it's in our hands,
Right. It's
you
that
know.
human connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And with Puppet Showplace, I ended up here. The theater, was established in 1974. Carl, Darren's old partner, he actually used to run the puppet slams here,
Oh, cool.
though. But I had never really connected to the theater before when I was in Boston. So at some point in my psycho freelance career, I was like, I'll go look on this other website, see what people are up to. And I saw, oh, this theater is looking for an artistic director. I actually seemed qualified for that job. And I had three different people forward me the job description. It's like, once puppetry is on your resume, it kind of stays on your
Yeah.
resume. It sticks in
Right.
people's mind. And I applied for it. I got the job. And Puppet Showplace has always been an all ages theater, like our primary audience. You performed here for adults. Amazing. I love your show.
What are you eating?
What are you eating?
Yeah.
And I actually still have the asparagus on my desk, I think.
That's great.
It's super great. I'm like, oh, Eric.
Some cardboard asparagus. That always
Yeah.
does it. Yeah.
But it's that, like, what is the truth of the all ages, right? This
Mm-hmm.
this thing that just is so profoundly delightful, and um and just is, yeah, our reflects our human inheritance, that
Yeah.
our cultural inheritance that we want to share. I didn't have a background in youth theater at all coming
Mm-hmm.
in. All of my puppetry experience had been like, let's do this. Like, I worked another year at the O'Neill on a piece that was inspired by a horrific murder and was told with this weird, very abstract language. I had another piece that was about the, you know, sexually inappropriate dot 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 question mark relationship between Lewis Carroll and Alice Liddell, which I
Mm-hmm.
worked on with Gretchen von Lente
Mm-hmm.
and Drama of Work. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's what puppetry is, right?
Right.
But
Right. Exactly. My first
yeah,
show was about survivors of the atomic bomb in
yeah, and
Hiroshima.
Hiroshima Maiden,
Yeah.
yeah, and which is an extraordinary piece, and actually, wait, so Eric, you were part of that. Was my first year, right? That you guys came with Dan Hurlin and
Mm-hmm.
did Dis Farmer.
That's right.
That was so great. It was so great.
That was a really good time.
It was a great show, but it also reflected, I think, a really nice thing about the spirit of Puppet Showplace, which is like say yes to whatever is going on and that we could say yes to. So when it was like, oh, the Institute of Contemporary Art is presenting this thing, could you guys do a workshop this weekend? And the cast is going to show up. Can you, like, get people to come together? I was like, yes,
Yeah.
sure. I don't know how yet, but we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that our theater really values is the, like, professionalism and excellence in puppetry. And I think so many people also encounter puppetry without mastery and without the dedication of time and technique,
Mm-hmm.
that having a home for professional
Yeah.
puppeteers,
Having a
yeah, it is so valuable. And so I think
mm-hmm.
we, over the years, we've had more, like, clarity of the vision around where we want to grow, because there's still a lot of work to be done to make that vision as robust as possible. But
Has
hopefully
that
by
vision sort of evolved? Has
yeah,
it sort of evolved over the time that you've been there?
absolutely. So I think when I first started, the theater was still in really super, super scrappy economic circumstances. So at the time, my colleague Brad Schur of Paper Heart Puppets was the resident artist here. And,
Yeah.
He had just started, I had just started, and we were sort of like, we're going to do every puppet program for everyone for whatever they can pay, right? We're going to grow through, like, aggressive rigorous program development and growth.
Right.
And we did, like, we started an adult education program. We started doing school residencies. Brad developed other shows for tour. We did some production collaborations. And each one only had like tiny bits of like margin, right, that would really help us grow. But eventually those tiny amounts added up, and there were more people who were like, wow, you guys work really freaking hard and get a lot of stuff done. So that was nice.
Yeah.
And eventually, there's a lot of like sort of administrative drama at different, or that today. But eventually we got to a point where like my position was full time, and we were able to start investing in the thing that I really cared about, which is production development, where we could really say, hey, Puppet Showplace, be partnering with people to create this next generation of touring solo or duo puppet shows for all ages audiences. So we got there, and our incubator program, as it's called, has launched a lot of great shows by the Gottabees, by Faye Duprat, and others. And then I think I would say for me, it actually was really triggered by another episode of really intense kind of the start of the Black Lives Matter movement, the time when Philando Castile was shot by a police officer with a 4-year-old child in the back of his car. For me, and then eventually when Trump was elected, I just was like, I can't deal with the cognitive dissonance anymore of us having like diverse segment, but not having any really specific tangible goals or investments in that at Puppet Showplace. So we started just with our board having a lot more conversations that were like, when we say diversity, what do we mean? And where are we falling short? Our audience is actually very diverse, but it also reflects the segregation of Boston, and especially the Boston public schools. So, and you've probably seen what this is like in field trip audiences in New York City as well. You can go into an event and you're like, wow, the entire audience right now is like just one really specific racial identity, and it's because of these much bigger social forces. So one thing we started really feeling was like, wow, our audiences are not so much seeing themselves reflected on stage, and sometimes that's in the puppet characters, and sometimes that's in the puppeteers and artists and the leaders of the organization. So we want that to change. There's lots of ways that change can come about and lots of steps that we can take, but investing in representation of diverse identities, but especially Black puppeteers and people of color on our stage was really important. And then I would say another issue that's been really long time important to me has been the idea of diversity of ability. And I'm just going to start moving because my phone is running out of batteries. Good plan, Roxy. And I think especially in our education programming, we were seeing that, especially folks on the autism spectrum and some other with some other neurodiversity characteristics, that we were like, wow, there's a really strong, meaningful puppetry affinity here, and we want to be really intentional about serving these groups and serving these identities. So this idea of like universe as a principle, like we really want, like puppetry is so about creating the world you want to live in and creating the world of possibilities.
Right.
So we're like, when you make a puppet show, you can make any truth, any rules happen in the world. This is also a Paul Vincent Davis puppet, by the way. And this is the Eric Bornstein butterfly behind me. Um, but let's put that into practice in our organization as well.
Hmm.
So those were two really core commitments. And then I think moving forward, like we did a visioning uh, endeavor with our board looking towards our 50th anniversary season, and that was really great because one of the things that we started to shape out was like, what are the things that we can also say no to?
Hmm.
We and then what are the things that really matter to us? So ongoing investment in artists and new work really matters to us. Um, Making our facility and just all aspects of our operations and culture like respect the excellence of the art form was really
Hmm.
important to us. We want,
Hmm.
we don't want to keep feeling like we have to apologize for anything about the way we do business or, um, just really being attentive to that. And then also looking at partnerships and realizing like, wow, we have a lot of kind of toxic partnerships with like school districts and other things that where like the burden around paperwork and other things is just not shared, and that
Uh-huh.
underlying respect for puppetry and the value of what
Hmm.
we do just isn't built into the partnership. And I think that's one thing where we're really trying to be like, no, if we're not going to stand up for ourselves and we're not going to value ourselves, how on earth are all these people with all the cultural stereotypes and all the, misinformation about puppetry, how are they going to do that?
Yeah.
So those are some of the big elements of the vision statement now, and it's also informed like how we as an organization wanted to respond to the present uh, Black Lives Matter movement and like reigniting the
Hmm.
calls for really deeply re-examining I would say what we value in society. So we're today
Hmm.
launching a Black puppeteer empowerment grant program and research residency for the summer, because like our own long-term operations, we're gonna, whoo, it's crazy. Hey, there's a pandemic going on, but um,
Right.
what a week. Uh, but with this, we're like, look, what we believe that puppetry is a liberating art form. It's a radical art form. It's an art
Hmm.
form of great hope and possibility. And so we
Hmm.
want that art form to empower and be in the hands of Black artists right now. And there's work that needs to be done to get um, representation where it needs to be in this country.
Yeah, it really sounds like you guys are doing a great job of sort of active, like making active choices, right? And
Mm,
taking like not you mentioned just more than just identifying issues,
mm-hmm.
like looking at how it relates to what it is you do and how you're
Yeah.
like what's also important to, like, you're still a puppet theater, but
Yeah.
looking at how that relates to what you do and then
Mm-hmm.
making active choices to say, okay, we have to go out and do something, like we have to go
Yeah.
make these changes ourselves.
Yeah. And I would say, like, it's puppetry itself that has taught us that. Like, we weren't
Yeah.
necessarily in the past ready to learn that lesson because we were like, oh God, there's absolutely no money in the bank. So the only thing we need to think about is money, right?
Right. Right.
But once we started to really, I think, believe more in ourselves and our abilities and started to value the art form more ourselves and be able to make that case better to our
Hmm.
partners and have more support from trustees and others. I I think it's like in the same way that when you approach a puppet show, you dramaturgically you have to start being like, well, what am I trying to say?
Right.
And now where's the material and the what are the design choices that are
Right.
in partnership with me and what I want to say, or in partnership with the story and the concept of this character. And and when you find that, it feels so right, right?
Right.
You're like, I'm not going to build little red fish out of super toxic whatever materials, right? I want some, or maybe you are, but I want this feeling of the organic
Yeah.
matter come to life in the story, right? And
Well,
so
it's the sort of
yeah,
thing where like every part of the show is part of the message. The
exactly.
puppetry is a really sort of holistic approach to what a theatrical
Mm-hmm.
communications. It's like even the thing you're building, like the material you're building with, is part of
Yes.
the message, and the people who are telling the story are part of the message, and like you have to consider the audience and the
Mm-hmm.
people who are funding it, and like the place that
Yes.
you're in all of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that once you kind of realize that, you're like, oh, let's let's get people excited about it. Everyone behind that
Yeah.
same vision of what this like magical puppet theater experience is that we really want to build together and what we want it to be. And I would say I've been really
Yeah.
inspired by certain other puppetry leaders across the country who did have that extraordinary galvanizing clarity of vision. People like um, Nancy Staub, who ran the World Puppetry Festival in the 80s, and um, like Sandy Spieler, who runs in the Heart of the Beast Puppet and Mask. Even the consistency. I would say Darren came out of the bread and puppet tradition, and I learned a lot of that from him. I
Mhm.
haven't
Right.
worked directly with bread and puppet, although I've seen most of their shows, and so I really liked knowing about and encountering these companies who had really clear, like very comprehensive mission, vision, values,
Yeah.
orientation to their work.
Yeah.
Because I think you feel it in the work that they present. Then.
How is you mentioned that like your first step in making these changes was like getting your
Mm-hmm.
board together and like getting clarity on your board. What was that process like?
Mm-hmm.
Was there, I
Mm.
mean, Puppet Showplace has been around for a while, and your board is
Yeah.
made up of your community members.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like that could either go one of two, like that could go both
Yeah.
ways, where it could be like, well,
Yeah.
this is the way we've always done it, and this is my Puppet Showplace
Mm-hmm.
theater. And there's also like Puppet Showplace is us. Let's all like make
Yeah.
like let's it's representative of us, and we want to move that to a better place.
That's a great question. So one thing I'll say is like I think sometimes when people in the arts world like give talks or they present, everything feels very like, and then it all worked out, and then we implemented it, and that's all storytelling,
Right.
right? So
Right.
really the many things that I had to do was like cry a lot at meetings, um, you know,
Yeah.
be really embarrassed and awkward a lot, and feel really ignorant a lot. Like so,
Uh-huh.
those that's the truth. Um,
Uh-huh.
but one thing that I think in this that I learned how to be is like emotionally honest, and to say in spaces where I'm like, I just don't like this. I was good at that as a director.
Uh-huh.
I could say aesthetically,
Yeah.
I'm very clear on what's going on. But sometimes organizationally, I would get in these traps of like, but we need to serve wealthy patrons in this certain way. And then
Uh-huh.
I would lose track of like how much emotional labor I was actually doing And then I would be like, why am I taking this emotional labor away from like these impoverished kids who I really care about getting puppetry, this hopeful, amazing art form into their lives and schools. And that is the only place I want to be
Mm-hmm.
putting my emotional labor right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so like one thing is I actually learned how to set boundaries a little bit better. In some of the conversations with the board, it was a facilitated discussion, either by trustees themselves or by an outside consultant or facilitator. Some of that was good. Some of it uh, felt a little too wonky and technical. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have such a love-hate relationship with like other people's helpful advice and expertise. Sometimes I'm like, but only if someone tells me it's right, then I'll feel good, right? And
Right.
I think over the years you just right, like you learn how to trust yourself, how to trust your instincts, how to admit when you don't know something, and also how to budget. Like I'll probably know that after I think about it for like 6 months and try out two scenarios. And that's really just what it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take. I'm going to not engage in magical thinking around it. I'm going to, that's probably what it's going to take. And I'm not sure because I've never done it before,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels worth doing. Do you think worth doing? Um, and I'm someone who's very precise about language. Um, I do like to think through things, and I like to write about stuff. Then that helps me to get clarity. Um, so I think having that as part of the process where it's like, but is this clear enough that we can just write it succinctly and then all be on the same page about it when we have questions?
Yeah.
I do like getting to that place. So I have a high level like confusion and jargon detector where I'll be like, we just used some words for the last 20 minutes and I don't know what we're talking about. So this isn't done. Anyways. But yeah,
That
and
seems
that's
super
yeah.
important. Yeah.
And that's been part of our like emergency response so far. I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard. This stuff is hard.
It's hard work. It's
It's
work.
hard
It's
work,
just
and we
work.
and we don't know what's going to happen. But in that, what we've been trying to do is just to like set up the conditions that allow for some security that then allows for some creativity, right? We one thing we're really trying to stay away from is the idea of like, oh, but if you just can solve this one thing and sell it and like get it on the internet, maybe that'll save you. And I'm just like,
Right.
no, no, thank you, no, thank you to that.
Right.
We did actually while I'm in here, I'll show you. This is our puppet show and tell streaming setup with the
Oh
two
yeah, nice.
DSLR cameras, our cool soundboard,
Nice.
the wireless mics. Yeah. And so my amazing colleague Sarah Nolan, the who's at Puppet Motion on Instagram, but Sarah, uh, it, like Sarah and I both have a background in TV. Sarah is this amazing technician and has a film degree, and it just also is super camera literate and
Yeah.
gear and just has the ability to just go and solve technical problems. So what she's been able to figure out for in various projects in the past 2 months has been really extraordinary. And um, we'll see. Again, this is not like the answer to how a puppet theater survives a pandemic. I think we're still
Right.
trying to figure that out every day, especially as the prospects, ooh, and the like projected duration of things, it just keeps
Yeah.
going. And they're like, oh, no field trips ever until there's a vaccine. No
Right.
unnecessary. unnecessary visitors or whatever.
Right.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It can be a lot to
Hmm.
think about, and especially for a company that is, that doesn't have the same kind of a
Yeah.
buffer as larger,
Yeah.
larger organizations in the
Yeah.
country do.
Though there is solidarity now, because I'm glad I'm also not running the Met or whatever, who's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we only are operationally solvent when we bring in like X millions of dollars a night.
Right.
So yeah, I think one thing we've been doing a lot of organizing with like the local small business community, with
Hmm.
um, our state arts agency, with others. I think now it really is the time on so many levels to be like, let's get strong together, let's organize, let's articulate what we really value,
Right.
because some things that we don't value, we should get rid of them now because we can't afford them.
Right.
And so let's really uh, invest in what matters, you know. So we feel prepared to say that we think puppet theater matters and it's worth
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the especially like you said, having a physical location
Hmm.
for a puppetry for like long lasting puppetry that
Yeah.
you can rely on, it
Hmm.
is
It's a
so
home.
rare in this
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference
Yeah.
when there's a community of people that know that they can go get
Hmm.
interesting connections at a place.
Yeah.
um
There used to be a calendar. I don't know who produced it. Maybe Unima, maybe a separate group, but it was a calendar, 12 months of all the puppetry centers and puppet theaters in the US. And it was just
uh-huh.
like fun, great pictures. And I don't know which happened, whether they stopped producing the calendar because enough puppetry centers had closed that there weren't enough for 12 months, or just the people who were doing whatever heroic effort to produce it
Right.
didn't want to do it anymore. But I think about that, right? It's like, it also goes back to articulating the value, because again, sometimes we move into marketing opportunities and programming spaces that are like, oh, someone needs childcare, we can give them a puppetry program. Oh, someone needs a way to like distract these kids or fill this hour of their time, give them a puppetry program. And the thing that started to be clearer to me, sometimes people ask you about your mission. They'll be like, well, if you didn't exist, like what is the problem that wouldn't
Hmm.
be addressed?
Right. What yeah.
Yeah, and when our framework was like theater for youth and families, I didn't feel good about that, because I was like, yeah, but if we didn't exist, they would still have Disney. They would still have
Hmm.
like all, there's a youth theater in walking distance from us. They would still have their teachers and librarians. So maybe, and I got really stuck in that space. But I think that was because we were framing our value proposition incorrectly, because that's not what our real value is. If we didn't exist, all these puppeteers in New England would not have a home.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you wanted to know about the absolutely essential cultural heritage of our entire human civilization, that is the art and superpower of puppetry,
Yeah.
where would you go?
Yeah.
The Searching on the internet to the Facebook group Puppeteers.
Yeah.
Maybe you could go to Puppeteers of America, but Puppeteers of America is a like a membership organization once you've already found your way in.
Right.
And once I had that clarity, it's been like we're much aligned. One thing we started talking about called part of the intangible heritage.
Okay.
of these
There we go.
different
We got
sites.
you back. We lost you there for a
Uh,
second.
oh, oh no, sorry. Uh, I was talking about like
I know, that's all right.
you and yeah. Am I back now? Am I
Ironically,
back?
you were talking about the clarity that you gained.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
So the I should have like logged on because we actually have really fast internet now that we invested in, but I didn't like switch it, and I think I'll lose you if I try to switch it now. Um, but I think the clarity that I gained around like what really would be lost, that a home for puppetry would be lost if Puppet Showplace didn't exist, it helped us sort of move into this space of really valuing what we do in and of itself.
Hmm.
And in the same way that like UNESCO names these different cultural heritage sites, and many of them are puppet theaters. And sometimes I would be like, well, we present all these different styles. We're not the same as like the Sicilian marionette theater in this one place with a really specific cultural heritage. But we really do reflect like the magic of the professional puppetry community in New England. And then we
Right.
invite engagement with that community into our home
Hmm.
from puppeteers all over the world. And, preserving that home, preserving that ecology is essential. It is
Hmm.
essential. How dare you consider letting a part of our like global heritage as a civilization go? And then it becomes like, oh, now I get what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not here
And
trying to
it's just,
distract your kids.
there's just something that there's just something that, especially in puppetry, that you can't
Mm-hmm.
get any other way than going and seeing it in a place.
Yeah.
And, and that is so important because of the kind of connection you get, especially with
Yeah.
puppets. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that kind of connection doesn't exist anywhere else. And it has so much potential. It has so much
Mm-hmm.
being that alive. And it's so great to see that really pick up and really move with
Mm-hmm.
purpose. Because you can really tell when a place moves with purpose and when an organization moves with purpose.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool to see, very
Yeah.
clear at the Showplace, for sure.
Inspired by the
Because you're
do that.
super busy, I'm grateful that you took time to talk to
Mm-hmm. The internet is
for
failing. You hear me
for
now?
talking with me, um, and we'll
Let's see.
hopefully get to see you again soon. And there we go. Just enough time to say goodbye, I'd say. Thanks,
There we
Roxy.
go. Yeah, sorry, I think so. Yeah, the gremlins came into the feed. Well, thanks everyone. And I'll just say, come check us out, puppetshowplace.org. And if you want to stream into our theater, going to puppetshowplace.org/show hyphen and hyphen tell. Puppet Show and Tell is running every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, we have great performances coming up this weekend. It's the Bella Show with Phil Berman and Brenda Huggins, and then after that, the amazing puppeteer John McDonough of Pumpernickel Puppets is doing Three Billy Goats Gruff. So please tune in, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Roxy.
Bye, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left, and man, what a week. I'm so glad that we got to talk to Roxy, because she is really just doing amazing work. And speaking of doing amazing and important work, I think it's just worth taking a minute to reflect on how to get to work now with all of the things that are important to work on, not the least of which is the Black Lives Matter movement. And, you know, I feel like puppetry is, you know, Roxie mentioned that the art of puppetry is maybe uniquely attuned to helping you figure out how to connect to people on a different level. And in this time, what really matters is connecting to people and making, and like going out and making a difference. And there are so many different ways to do that. You can be loud about it, you can be quiet about it, but you need to do something about it. And the way to make that work is to, just like we would do in a puppet show, you examine like what you have in front of you, examine the tools that you have, examine and take a look at what really works, and what works well and what doesn't work well. And things that are working well, play that up. The things that aren't working well, get rid of it, change it. And then find the people that you need to help you, because this is not a lonely art form. This is an entirely collaborative art form, just like any other art form, but really puppetry depends on other people, and what you're doing depends on other people. So find other people, reach out to other people. And I also want to say that puppetry is also about making something outside of yourself, is about uplifting something outside of yourself. The whole art form is about, look at this thing over here. Don't pay as much attention to this thing over here, but look at this thing. And that's kind of the sense of the work that needs to get done, is like, find the voices that need to be uplifted, find the people that need to have their stories told, and help them tell their stories. I was talking to a group of 6th graders this morning about what it's like being a puppeteer, and really talking about the collaborative nature of the art form. And it really is, I definitely got into puppetry because I'm a middle child and I wanted a reason to like differentiate myself from my brothers, and like said, look at me, look at all the cool things that I can do. And that's definitely like the beginning part of what got me into the art form. But the part that keeps me in the art form is the much more rewarding feeling of helping someone else, of saying, look what they can do, and I can be a part of that, and I can help them become the best thing that they can be. I can help that person shine. That's a much more rewarding sensation and a much more rewarding feeling, and it can really go much further in connecting with people. So I encourage you to do the work. And you heard Roxie talk about how uncomfortable that can be sometimes, to really say what you honestly feel to people that can make a difference. That's the work that needs to be done. So go out and do it. I'm going to give my quick shout outs to joincampaignzero.org. Campaign Zero is a great organization that is working to make change. I also want to give a shout out to the Craftivist Collective, which is an organization that's helping people make change quietly. And maybe some of you out there are introverts who are really good at crafting things, and this is a way to be heard and to make change. It's a long, steady, slow process, and those of us who are crafters know about taking time to pull problems apart and work on them over a long period of time. And that's the work that we want to do. So let's tap into that. I've been really happy to have you all here. Thank you all for joining me. And now more than ever, I'll say, you don't have to do everything to do something. But I will say, do something. And we'll see you next time.